This is a review of the Santa Cruz Highball versus the Santa Cruz Blur. I raced with the Blur for 2 seasons and then I decided to switch to the Santa Cruz Highball. And while I didn't do any racing this season because of COVID, I have taken this out numerous times, enough to get a feel for the differences. And really not much to say about this bike in particular. It's the S build. I have Aspens on here, which came with the bike. I switched out the wheels. These are Nobles. They're carbon Noble. I think the model is, it's TR32 or TS32, something like that. Really nice wheels. And not much to say about the bike itself. I think you can see reviews about that online. What I wanted to talk a little bit about is switching from a full suspension bike, XC bike, to a hardtail. Ultimately, I do not like riding this bike compared to the Blur. I have a visual aid I'm going to show you in a minute, and I have to do it quick because I think my wife is going to think I'm crazy if she sees this. In any event, the full suspension bike I didn't feel I needed on my trails because my trails are kind of tame. There's not a lot of technical riding. But ultimately what happened here was, I'll go to my visual aid. So we have a pool noodle with Batman. That's the Blur, because I don't have the Blur anymore, so I can't show you that. And then we have Naked Barbie on a piece of wood. And right now I'm feeling a lot like Naked Barbie. So when you go around a berm, imagine taking a 2x4 around the berm and it does not give way. There's absolutely no flex in it. Whereas with the Blur, the pool noodle actually flexes to the shape of the berm, and Batman, his center of gravity, depresses into the berm, and you feel much more inside of your bike and in control. Whereas with the Highball, Naked Barbie, I'm feeling very high on the center of gravity around turns because as I'm turning, I'm much higher away from the berm, and I simply am struggling adapting to that new center of gravity and geometry. So I greatly miss the pool noodle ride. And here, I'm gonna get rid of this now so that my kids and wife don't see that. And if you look at the geometry on these bikes, the Blur is longer. I think, I can't remember the numbers. The Blur has like an inch longer reach and a couple inches longer wheelbase. The top tube on this is longer, but again, the reach is shorter. I think the head angle's a little bit steeper on this bike. So the geometries are different. And if you see the videos too for the Highball, there is a considerable amount of compliance in the rear end, but it simply wasn't as much, obviously, as a full suspension bike. Where this bike did excel over the Highball, I feel, was on machine cut, manicured, and very well designed trails where I could feel very confident and rail the turns because they're raised berms. And on the jumps on the manicured trails, for example, I brought this to DTE Energy Trails, which is in Chelsea, Michigan. And I was very comfortable on there and I really enjoyed jumping it. But then if I take it to a place that was a little bit more technical with loose gravel and turns, I was not comfortable or confident, and I'm struggling to regain the confidence that I had with my full suspension bike. So what I might end up doing is trying to trade this bike for another XC full suspension bike. Or I might also, my fitness is down now, and so I might give it a chance for my fitness to give myself a chance to regain my fitness to see if I can overcome the confidence issue. I think the weight on this bike, I just looked at the picture, but I can't remember now. It was 21.3 pounds, I believe, fully loaded with the cage and pedals. And my Blur was something like 24 or 25. So even with those weight differences, I think the Blur was beneficial in terms of handling confidence. All right, that's it. Thanks. One more thing, and my kids discovered the Batman and Naked Barbie, so they don't know what I used it for though. One more thing, switching from the full suspension to the hardtail, it was very, very obvious the loss of traction on the rear wheel around turns, and not so much when I was climbing, but primarily around chattery turns. I ride with my pedals all the way loose, and the first few rides, my cleats would pop out of the pedals around almost every chattery turn, and that was completely different than my Blur. I never had that problem before, so what that meant was obviously my rear end was chattering around turns, and that transferred to my pedals and into my legs, and enough so that it was jarring my feet loose out of the pedals, where previously I rode with those fully loosened. I had to tighten these a few clicks. So it's very, very obvious that your body and your legs and your feet and everything are taking that chatter as opposed to the rear suspension on the Blur, and subsequently I'm sure losing traction and speed on turns. Okay, that's it. Bye.